Hi, Pedro here, and today we gotta have a little chat. We gotta raise up our awareness. This could be a long one, so maybe have me in the background while you do something else. Alright, I got 8 pages worth of things right here to talk about. So don't mind me if you catch me reading because, I need to read. Good news and bad news. When things change, it can go either way. Sometimes we ignore it, sometimes we're not aware of it, and sometimes we don't even know how to react. Each year seems to start off with a bang of some kind, and 2026 is no exception. And today I'm going to go over something that you may say, you know what, that doesn't affect me. Why should I care about this? But give me a few minutes of your time, and if I convince you otherwise, then you agree to like and subscribe. Deal? Deal. Manufacturing can be very expensive, and some manufacturers are lucky that they don't have any debts on the equipment that they own. So it's only the matter of maintenance to keep the money printing. But what if overnight that became a liability? And not just for one type of manufacturing either, but many. What happens then? Do they A, get it remedied, B, let it right out, C, shut down, or D, something else? The easy answer is A, for the ones who have lots of capital, duh! B is easy for those who will slow down to see what happens, but many will probably face C. And option D, I don't know, panic, have a cookout, watch a movie, I don't know, celebrate cats everywhere. I mean, you should celebrate cats and dogs and your other fluff babies and other animals because they're great. Now, I'm a realist. I look things from a logical perspective, checking if things make sense, fixing things that don't, saying things for what they are and what the downstream effects are. I'm advocating for awareness, for you to know what's going on, for you to see what things can lead up to, and for you to act, whether it's spreading the word or even contacting your legislators, respectfully. If you haven't heard from maker communities, Washington, California, Colorado, and New York are making moves against computer-aided manufacturing for everyone. You, me, neighbors, the people that made your microwave, the shop you had milled that aluminum slab for your kitchen, the average hobbyist, the professional, big manufacturers, all of them. With Washington, we got HB 2321 and HB 2320. HB 2320 did get passed and is now pending Senate approval. That's scary. Even if it's gone through a third revision, it's scary. You have California with AB 2047, New York with A2228, and Colorado with HB 261144. I'll be leaving links to each of the bills down in the description below so that way you can view them at your pace. Local state bills are being updated to tackle ghost guns via guilty before being proven innocent. 3D printers, CNC machines, lathes, laser cutters, CAD software, slicers, firmware, and their makers are in the crosshairs. If it has the capability of making a firearm in whole or in part, it's fair game. If you have files that can be used with machines to make a firearm in whole or in parts, whether you can use them, plan to use them, or let them collect digital dust, you're in the crosshairs too. The language is non-specific and vague to cast wide nets. Is something that is resembled to have a possibility to be used as a firearm in whole or in part, then it's illegal. Have a simple cylinder? Well, obviously that's a barrel. You got a hollow out rectangle? No, that's not a pencil holder that you've been making for your daughter. No. Because that could be easily made into an ammunition clip. Don't even joke at me. So, how's this all being made to work out? How do you force something like that on a large scale? Well, that's where the Internet of Things comes into play. Just have an app so that things are online as much as they don't have to be. Now granted, a lot of equipment is online these days by default, but they don't really need to be. And there's a lot that isn't. But here we're gonna force it to be. Because government knows what's best for us. They know how the internet work. They know computers. Did you know that California passed a law so that in July 2027, operating system providers have to provide some form of age verification? Isn't that great? I love having my privacy invaded. I love having Microsoft, Google, and whatnot have access to my state ID, my personal information, and all that stuff. You know, maybe have them go through a third party to make sure that everything's legit, that I am a grown-ass person and not a little bubble-blowing baby. Are you insane? No. That's crazy talk. No. No. That's not how that works. And especially with Linux, which, if things happen the way they are, I'll be switching over. The way the framework will work is via government-sponsored spyware on your machine and your slicers. It'll collect some sort of sponsored database, have an AI scan the shape, and it will decide whether your object is greenlit. In fact, there's a third party that already exists just to do that, and they're in Spain. And their name is Print and Go. Oh boy! How does that sound? Having spyware forced to be installed on your equipment, on your computer, to say, is this thing cool? Is this okay? How about going through a third party overseas where there's no governance guidelines? How is your data gonna be protected when it's stolen? It's not, because that's on you. It's not on them. It's not on the people making up these rules to say how they're gonna protect you when things go wrong, because they're gonna go wrong. Well, let's keep going. Let's do a little review. Computer-aided manufacturing tools are the target of new legislation to tackle ghost guns. Offenders include literally everyone. The mitigating solution is through black box spyware, where one option is an overseas host. So how does this actually affect people? Let's start with the average person wanting to start 3D printing. They won't be able to go on Amazon and pick up the latest printer from Bamboo Labs they've been saving up for. And that's because of its potential to make firearms. So they have to find a physical retail store that actually sells it, since it can't be sold online anymore. It has the potential to make a firearm. Okay, but before then, they have to go through a criminal background check and possibly wait 2 weeks before they can actually make the purchase. Okay, you know, it's just like buying a handgun. Alright, so the average person is pretty miffed by having to go through that, but they passed check, they got the printer, they got it set up, and it's ready for use. You know, they were annoyed, their jimmies were ruffled, and they just said, whatever, fuck it. After spending many hours in designing some novelty shelving brackets, they're ready to print. But there's a problem. The printer's not printing. It's not doing the thing that it does. Now, this example person, this who knows who cares, they're knowledgeable about computers, the drivers are good, the cables are good, it's definitely turned on, and the slicer sees it, and the test prints come out good. So, what happened? Should be fine, right? It turned out that the print job was denied to be printed after further review by the software. But it's a thing to hold up shelves. So, it's not illegal, because it's a shelving bracket. But it still got denied. Well, an AI deemed the geometry to be the offending factor. Now, this person could possibly face a misdemeanor or felony charges. How that will actually look out is not described in any detail in any way, shape, or form of any of proposed legislation. So, the thing passed. Someone gets a thing. They design a thing, they try to print the thing, and AI says, oh no, can't do that. But nowhere in the legislation says, how do we actually enforce the repercussions? Is it going to be a human review? Probably not, because humans cost money and nobody wants to pay humans money to live and do things anymore. Are we gonna go ahead and go after their IP address, subpoena the ISP, and be like, we need to get this guy's address because of ABCD? Is that gonna happen? Are we just gonna be swatted one day? And be like, we're gonna have the cops on our door? Hopefully with a warrant, because without a warrant, they can't do shit. But really, read the stuff yourselves. It's bananas. Since the design had to be scanned elsewhere, that transmission could contain the IP address and other details that can be subpoenaed by authorities, and things proceed from there. If the printer is network enabled, then rather the computer sending the information, it'd probably be the printer to do that outright and bypass the use of a VPN. So, because of the way the bills are being written, the stuff has to be built into the firmware, so the printer itself would have that responsibility to do. What do you do then? How are you gonna protect yourself? Kind of see where this is going, right? So let's another scenario. The job got greenlit, they print it, it came out amazing. So good that they want to start selling it online. But later, they see the thing that they worked so hard on is now being sold by other random people at different retail sites. Amazon, Etsy, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, and he never made his designs public. Well, it turned out that there was either a data breach on a third-party service that was scanning the job to get greenlit and printed, or a hacker was snooping the connection, or something else. Either way, it got leaked. Since a third party is overseas, copyright now becomes an issue, because countries the world over have different flavors of copyright laws, and it's incredibly difficult to fight it if you don't have a presence in the offending jurisdiction and lots of money. This sucks because they are seeing sales in the thousands against their measly 100, while also being undercut. What can you do? That wouldn't happen if there wasn't a third party risking your private information becoming public or anything. No, nothing like that. Not like data brokers or, selling your private information as it is already, where you have your information stored at other places that have terms of services that say, we can sell your information to third parties that can sell your information to do more shit. Awesome. Now, let's think about a business, shall we? Let's start small, tiny. This shop has been making tools and knickknacks for years. It's beloved and has something for everyone. They see these bills being passed in a few states and begin to worry, since all their goods are crafted in-house with lathes and CNC machines, while having started engraving with a laser cutter they got a few months ago. Let's say that it's not happening in their state. They don't have to worry too much unless they ship anything to customers in states where those laws have passed. Don't forget that when they're passed, they take effect immediately. To continue doing business in those states, mind you, they have to be compliant. All of their equipment has to be compliant, and they have to be able to prove compliance. Otherwise, they won't be legally able to do business. So the small business makes an announcement about not pausing sales everywhere. They'll just pause to where the legislation is in effect. That way, they can save up to become compliant to resume sales in those states. Now, let's say that this is happening in their state. It got passed, and now they gotta deal with it. They are stopping production. Whatever inventory that they have, they can still sell, but they can't make new inventory because their tools are not compliant. Then these guys, they now got the heebie-jeebies that there's gonna be crackdowns on people that have equipment. So now they're gonna start looking for compliant equipment, because of course at this point, there is compliant equipment out there. There isn't. Right now it's just this one random service in Spain. A compliant lathe is going to run them $20,000, but they need 2 of them. And a compliant CNC machine is going to run them $300,000. A compliant laser cutter, just $5,000. That's a hypothetical cost of $345,000 before taxes. Even as a business expands to depreciate the value of the equipment between 3 and 5 years, that's still a pretty chunk of change. At employee salaries between 75 and 150K, that's on average 3 employees. If they have any savings, maybe they can squeak by adding 3 employees overnight. They may have to lay off someone and take out a loan. Whatever they do, they feel pretty comfortable as they don't have to worry about any loss they don't have to worry about any losses in steady sales. However, they will have delays in obtaining the new equipment because of the new imposed rules, which can cost them thousands in unrealized sales, not to mention any of the costs and time associated with training with the new equipment. Then there's the matter of what to do with the old machines. They can't legally sell those anymore. Even though they work perfectly fine, they can't legally use them. With the onset of the new expenses, they may most likely have to increase the prices of their goods. Let's go bigger. Let's switch to a large-scale shop. Maybe something in the automotive sector. A subcontractor. Like small business, they have the same considerations for contracted clients within affected states. And that surely won't be a mess. Fast forward, now it's their state. They have a single factory with lots of equipment. A few millions worth in hard assets with contracts worth over a few $100,000. But nothing in totality that will cover the cost of an entire facility. After lots of consideration, they decided to close shop. They couldn't afford to engineer and roll out new compliant hardware that meets their needs as well as compliance even at 1/4 of their operating capacity. Having to cancel contracts outside their control, they have no way they could meet demands on their deadlines. With subcontractors gone, the large-scale shop needs to find a new compliant subcontractor fast, otherwise they'll fall short on their inventory to meet demands. Luckily, the large shop can cover 6 months worth of losses as a safety net. Now, having found a new compliant subcontractor, negotiations are showing that they're in high demand because of the changing rules, and the costs will be higher because of the resource availability, or lack thereof. The big shop now has to jack up prices to cover the cost of the new subcontractor, unless they're able to accept slimmer margins. Let's face it, what company is gonna say, no, we don't want profit, or we don't want to have less profit? Especially if there's investors involved that say, hey, we want more. We invested in you, so you have to give us stuff back, but now we also want more. In an ever increasing cycle of the more we give you, the more and more you give us. It's not gonna work out too well. Now let's zoom out from the individual perspective, but don't forget them. Alright? What happens statewide? Billions of dollars worth of perfectly working equipment became illegal overnight. A lot has to be replaced because either the machine isn't supported anymore or the software isn't supported anymore. Some software running systems is custom tailored and won't be ready for maybe 1 to 3 months. Then there's also the matter of custom made hardware. No matter which way you slice it, now there's countless new made machine waste out of perfectly good working machines. That has to be dealt with, and they can't be resold because they're not compliant. So you have good hardware that can do the job, but you can't use them because they can't follow the rules, and then you can't sell them to someone else who could make use of them because they don't follow the rules, or they can't follow the rules. Oh, we gotta smelt them down or something? What is the thought? This is what happens when you start aiming at the tool. See, this is the kind of thing that these people just don't really think about when you are targeting the tools to make something. Let's look at computers and programming. I'm a computer scientist. That's where I got my bachelor's in. I can program. But there's nothing really there to safeguard that capability to make something. We're mandating all owners of computers, regardless of their ability to code and resources to learn how to code, to have mandatory spyware to make sure that if you're designing software of any nature that it's not malicious. That's not been a thing. They could probably make it a thing if they really want to, but then you run through the same rabbit hole that I'm going through is, what are you really doing for enforcement? Also, you're invading my privacy. Also, fuck off. There's no real forethought into there's no real forethought into the ideas once they're signed on. You have a good intent, but your execution, bad. Going back here, makers of hardware and software are suddenly overburdened to meet compliance for their own goods while dealing with their current clients. So now with these rules in place, corpos say, hey, we need to address this ASAP. But also, the retail side says, hey, we need to deal with this ASAP. The OEMs are going to be overburdened with work, which will cause more delays. And since there's no grace period when these things come into effect overnight, what are the penalties? Realistically speaking, what is going on? So now these guys are overburdened to do the compliance for their own goods, dealing with their clients, dealing with supply delays start creeping up. Now we have the possibility of having things being in low supply, high demand, and now to add the new costs of things coming into the consumer market. So that's not inflation. This is a self-inflicted financial gash across industries with computer-aided manufacturing. Now we're looking through a wider lens to seeing how it affects the downstream. And for the everyday person, they can see their regular goods go up X%. Some people might say inflation, but it's not. This is legislation that was passed that increased the burden cost to do business. That is not inflation. Now, keeping the same focus, now let's look at the system a little bit. The use of more AI to do all these checks is further stressing an already stressed electrical grid because of the object scanning. So every day, hundreds of thousands of people, individuals, businesses, doing print jobs, setting their lathes, doing the CNC machines and the laser cutting, they have to go through this government mandated spyware to go through an algorithm to check if whatever the job is good to go. Our electrical grid is already pretty ding-dang stressed. We haven't really invested in our own infrastructure to handle the capability. So many more data centers want to be built, but they can't be built because there's no infrastructure available in order to support them. And not only that, once we would have that infrastructure to do so, it would already be stressed because there are already data centers in the pipeline to use that I can't say extra energy because it's not extra. And that burden trickles down to the everyday person because states give these data centers basically a free ride and then place the burden on the everyday citizen. So now the problem spreads countrywide. As if the cost of living wasn't hard enough with stagnant wages, a shrinking workforce, and consistent layoffs, and the value of the dollar shrinking, the burden is now made even worse. So let's do a quick recap. Some shops manage to live, others die, people get frustrated, the cost of things go up, and now there's a ton of new waste of working machines needing a new future that really don't have a new future because they can't have a new future. And now the wrong move can nab you a misdemeanor or a felony offense because the government doesn't trust its citizens when its citizens are the ones that elected them in the first place. And not looking at feedback from people to see like, hey, we want to do this. We want to make a change to the rules. What are your thoughts? No, it's reverse. We're making new rules, and we'll only look at them really depending on your awareness of these rules, whether you say, okay, these are good rules or these are bad rules. And then comes a new process of, okay, people hate the rules because they're actually bad and they were made bad. So we now have to spend time, money, energy into trying to fix it. Fix the broken thing that we put in place that either shouldn't have been in place or would have been made much less broken and more acceptable. We're establishing the carriage before the horse. Now let's look through another angle. Let's look at the data side of things. Like before with the example of the individual who said that they had their design stolen and, being made by a third party and resold. Let's go with that level. Under the writing of the versions of the bills, there are no safeguards for designs made. Of course there isn't. That's something for the OEMs, the third parties of the third parties to deal with. Just why? No. That's terrible. Individual, company, small, large, you better have money and lots of it to protect your IP when it's eventually leaked, stolen, sold as a knockoff, or otherwise. Many may not even know that the designs have already been stolen or being sold, while others know the reality and choose to accept that they won't be able to win the fight, then rely on their communities to help take down the fakers. How often is that gonna happen? Not to say that there aren't communities that won't do that. That's to say that there are communities that will help take down the fakers. How many IP holders can say that their communities will help them fight the fakers and be active participants about it? Then how is the average consumer gonna know if something's a fake imitation? What is the real deal? What if you as an individual or business have a copycat made of you and then your reputation goes down because the faker is doing more business with your stuff? Congratulations, your hard work helped somebody else do your work, but they're doing a shit job, but you're getting the flack for it. You're getting the flack for things being shitty because of the new cybersecurity risk introduced by that legislation. Those risks only increase every time you machine something. Let's say that you are well prepared to handle a copycat or IP theft. What about your hard drives? What about where you store all that goodness? The files stored in them are now subject to being scanned because you own the machinery that could be used to make firearms without your consent. This is a clear Fourth Amendment right to our expectation of privacy. The AI running the scans can easily make false positives, and now the authorities can be alerted to do whatever the heck they gotta do under the rules that we don't know because nobody wrote the process or procedures to do anything. Now the authorities have to sort things out, and you have to prove your innocence, which is wasting everyone's time, money, and sanity. So even if you keep your data on an external drive or NAS, it's all within scope because of the ownership of the file and not the suspected use. Not only is the government making the tools to make goods an issue, but now the files on your computer are an issue. You will not control your equipment nor your data. That no longer belongs to you. Simply put, You're not going to control any of your equipment, nor are you in control of any of your data. Let that sink in for a while as we fast forward. Let's say the legislation passes across different states. Some things change, some things didn't. What happened happens. It is what it is. New machining equipment's being sold as compliant, and people buying them now follow the new rules. There's plenty of old equipment working, and people are using them since they're assumed exempt. It's time to burst that bubble as the next wave hits, and it's not good. Legislation to make owning non-compliant computer-aided machining equipment is now illegal to possess. It started with just making things, new machining equipment to be made compliant, and being able to provide evidence that everything that you're doing with your machines and your sales or whatever is compliant. But now simply owning a non-compliant machine is a problem. You didn't get rid of it because it works. It works fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But now it's a liability. While nothing stipulates how any of that would be enforced, the problem isn't going away. That risk is still there. Whatever the consequences may be, it's the next stage. Things like this are not going to stop with a moving forward. They're always going to circle back to, okay, we're dealing with the problem as we can now going ahead, but what about things in the past? They're not just going to grandfather in exemptions. So machines are a problem, data's a problem, security's a problem, privacy's a problem. It can't get any worse, right? As saying goes, give them an inch and they'll take a mile. But in this case, they're taking the entirety of intercontinental highways. And you can equip your tinfoil hat for that. But, let's consider another thing. The rules have been set, the infrastructure for enforcement made, and the new processes have become the new norm because we as a people failed to protect our own privacy granted to us by the founding fathers of the United States. Corporations like Disney, Ford, the Games Workshop Group PLC, these are the guys that own Warhammer 40k. They own the entirety of the IP. They look at the text surrounding the rules for gun legislation. Like I just said, the stage has been made and set. The infrastructure, the enforcement, the policies, all of that is set, and we just have to live with it. And now we have corpos looking at this. And who's to say that they are not right now? I don't think I have to spell out for you. I think you can think what I'm gonna be saying right now. Because the technology and the process are in place to scan the objects of anything being machined by any means through computer-aided machinery. Figurines, that part that for a truck that you were working on a little while ago, or maybe that lightsaber project that you're just on the cusp of finishing. I hate to break it to you, but now you're in the crosshairs of, no, you're not allowed to do that. Because what you're making is illegal because it infringes on our IP. The shells of your Switch 2 Joy-Cons are broken. But now you can't print replacements because Nintendo put themselves into the database of things to say, no, that design is illegal, that is bad because we made the design for the Switch 2 Joy-Cons and they're not licensed to do any kind of reproductions. That awesome mural that you made with your laser cutter of your favorite anime with the finest hardwood that you had? No. The production company added the likeness of their character into the database and the laser cutter just says, no, I can't do that. Sorry. The algorithm says no. So now we enter into the era of hyper-controlled IPs. Entities have every right to reasonably protect their IPs. Not only can you not make fan-made things, but now it becomes, we don't have a right to repair anymore. That ability, the notion of right to repair is fragile at best. We have very poor litigations on that. With these kinds of technological systems, we can say goodbye to the right of repair. Now you can't even make a fan-made good and you can't even make things to fix things. Companies make goods and will only support them for a short while. Things are not made to last anymore. With these technological advances, we won't be able to make things to fix things, because IP holders will say they are not licensed to do so. So then it's, well, if you want to fix it, you're going to have to buy it from an OEM or third party that is licensed. But eventually, no one's going to be making that anymore. And you're still not going to be able to make the thing to fix the thing. With this level of thinking and forethought, can anyone really consider this type of legislation to control computer-aided or computer-driven manufacturing for sensible controls over ghost guns? Is painting you as an individual or business a criminal first before being innocent okay? Should the government mandate spyware that introduces increased cybersecurity risks onto your hardware or software? Should the government be able to have that spyware scan your personal data on your personal machines? Again, without your consent, because you own the equipment to make things. Big Brother's here, and is it okay for them to stomp over industry, creativity, and privacy? It's completely vague, overreaching language to be left to arbitrary interpretation to implement and enforce rules without protections or forethought into how powerful the reach is? Is that okay? Let's take another step. Yes, yes, another step. What about overseas manufacturing services? When things get rough in the States, what do? Do we A, deal with the problem ourselves? Or B, say, nope, we're gonna jump ship and have somebody else do it? Of course we're gonna pick B. That's the easiest and cheapest solution. Because we love selling everything overseas and not having any form of independence. The irony. Are the laws that are going to be enforced upon us be forced onto the likes of PCBWay and JLC PCB? Because they have machining services, whether it's related to electronics, whether it's machining any form of metals, or 3D printing, doing anything with plastics. Like, they can pretty much do it all. Are the legislators gonna then say that they have to do the object validations before charging someone to be made? Or it's gonna be, you pay the overseas manufacturer to do something, they scan it, but then they can't do it because it's deemed bad by an algorithm? Do you then lose your money, or do you get it refunded? Or are we gonna be telling them how they operate in their country? In this case, are we gonna be telling China how they can operate their factories for selling goods to the U.S. because of these laws? Yeah, it's a funny joke. That's a rip tickler right there. Yeah, I don't think that's realistic by any way. I don't think that's not realistic. No. If anything, there could be a customs issue with, this could be possible evasion of these rules. Time to do our thing. Again, where is the forethought? If you read the actual bill, it's not the spirit of the rule of law. It's in the technical details of what they entail and the long-term downstream effects that they have. There's way too much room for privacy overreach, data breaches, costs passed on to consumers, risks to businesses, no detailed process of how anything is going to be enforced besides possible penalties, no considerations to the untold amounts of queries to algorithms per object to scan that consume electricity and water, where those costs would fall onto regular people. It may come out of well intentions, but the execution is poor at best. If I were to give my 2 cents to the people writing up the new rules, I would caution them on the gross oversights that they're making and short-sighted views, as more harm is done than good. Don't blindly go to manufacturing equipment. You're not tackling the heart of the issue. You're not even targeting a symptom. Tools are not the cause of the issue. Improve your quality controls of firearm distributions in the first place and the checks that goes on with those processes. Improve them. It's already not perfect. Adding things onto it is gonna make it even more complicated, and you're just gonna give yourselves more room for error. For the offenders of making ghost guns, have the process that works against something like their social security number, against payment processors, to bar them from transactions with providers of manufacturing equipment. Don't target the tool. Don't target the distributors. Don't target the people that make tools. They are not the cause of the issue. They're not going to be able to control what people do with the products. We, as people, don't want to not own the things that we purchase. We work hard for things that we have. We don't want the notion of, if you buy something, you don't own it. If we buy something, it is ours to own. We don't want the, you own nothing and you'll be happy about it. Even with the notion of barring an individual, as I just mentioned moments ago, that in of itself also will raise privacy issues. That alone will raise privacy concerns, because you'll also have to develop processes and procedures and the tools to execute such things and to make sure that it's not abused. You know, I went off script quite a bit throughout that whole thing. But the whole purpose of this, just to circle back on everything, I'm just advocating common sense. I'm advocating for the logic behind what the hell this stuff entails. Because it doesn't just affect me as a consumer or business owner, but it affects you as a regular individual, as a consumer and or business owner. This is stuff that involves privacy, how things are just done here. More and more do we slip each and every day. We keep making steps to becoming an authoritarian regime that just that wants to surveillance every little thing. Is that what we really want? Do we want to just waive our rights? Do we really just want to throw away the rights that our forefathers for this country have fought for? Have fought for the things that we fought against just to be reinstated internally? Is this real? Is this reality? I don't know. Maybe the reality is gonna be that this stuff sets in, nothing changes. Because how are they gonna enforce it? How is it actually going to happen? How is it going to look? I'm advocating for your increased awareness, for you to look at what's going on, for you to become just a little bit more knowledgeable about how certain decisions affect a multitude of things. Even if you don't think about any of the things down the road, or just a few things that are just right next door, this stuff is happening. And if you don't agree with it, you should say something. This is me saying something. I don't agree with any of this. Yes, there is an issue, but the way the solution is wanting to be carried out is not the right way. It is not the correct way. It does more harm than good, even if it's coming from good intentions. Say what you will in the comments below, but this is my piece on it. Stay aware about what's going on, and I'll see you in something completely different.